Hello everyone! Welcome back to my channel, Stories Decode. The story begins with a father and daughter duo hiking up the Troll Peak in western Norway during their vacation. Upon reaching the top, Tobias tells his daughter, Nora, about the legend of trolls. It is believed that thousands of years ago, enormous trolls roamed the world, but one day, someone cast a spell on them, turning them into stone statues. Tobias, who believed in these old stories, was convinced that the trolls were still hiding in the Norwegian mountains and would one day come back to life. Hearing this, young Nora found the tale fascinating. However, 20 years later, Nora had grown up and lost all belief in these myths and magic. Now, she only trusted modern science. She had become a paleontologist, scientists who study ancient animal remains found underground to uncover details about the past. After 6 months of hard work, she finally discovered an incredible fossil, and to celebrate, she decided to throw a party with her friends. Meanwhile, construction work for a metro station was progressing rapidly in the mountains. To create a path for the metro, explosions were being carried out frequently. Many people were protesting against these operations, but the engineers ignored them and prepared for another explosion. However, when they entered a cave, they heard strange noises. Before they could make sense of it, the ground started shaking violently. The next moment, they witnessed a massive, terrifying monster. Seeing it, they tried to flee for their lives, but the collapsing mountain debris trapped them inside the cave. The news of this incident quickly reached the Norwegian Army headquarters. In response, the general ordered an aircraft to capture clear images of the location to understand what had happened. Additionally, he instructed that the Prime Minister be informed. Shortly afterward, Norway's Prime Minister, accompanied by her advisor Andreas, rushed to the military base. On their way, they met with the Defense Minister, who informed them that at least 50 people had lost their lives in the incident. They were then shown images of the site, revealing massive footprints in the ground. Seeing this, Andreas suspected that a gigantic creature was responsible, but he hesitated to speak up and was ignored. Meanwhile, Nora was still celebrating with her friends when an army helicopter suddenly arrived. A soldier stepped out and informed her that the Prime Minister had summoned her immediately. Without wasting any time, Nora boarded the helicopter and headed to the military base. Upon her arrival, Andreas led her to a room where top-ranking officers, including the Prime Minister, were gathered. Based on the available information, everyone believed that the incident had been caused by a deadly gas leak. However, Nora disagreed. Seeing the footprints in the images, she suspected that an ancient creature had come back to life. Andreas also had some theories about it, but he chose to remain silent. The rest of the government officials dismissed Nora's claims as absurd. According to them, there was no way an ancient creature could have survived all these years without food. But just then, a computer genius named Sigrid entered the room. She presented a video she had retrieved with great difficulty. As soon as the video played, everyone in the room was left in shock. The footage clearly showed a monstrous 150-foot-tall creature roaming the Norwegian mountains. Meanwhile, in the village of Leska, an elderly couple was peacefully spending their time at home when they suddenly heard a loud roar. Moments later, all their belongings started shaking violently. Thinking it was an earthquake, they rushed into a secret room inside their house. After everything calmed down, they stepped outside, only to find their home completely destroyed, along with significant devastation in the surrounding area. Meanwhile, Nora was now fully prepared to investigate the incident, and with the agreement of all the officers, the Prime Minister appointed her as a scientific advisor. As soon as the meeting ended, Andreas informed Nora about the incident in Liga, and immediately after, they both boarded a helicopter and set off for Liga. On the way, they had many conversations, during which Andreas asked Nora why she became a paleontologist. Nora explained that she had loved nature since childhood and wanted to understand the world around her better. She also told Andreas about her father, Tobias, and how he used to take her to the mountains and tell her stories about them. However, unfortunately, he became so lost in those stories that he lost touch with reality. At one point, his condition became so bad that he had to be admitted to a mental hospital. When they reached Les Gas and saw the devastation, both Nora and Andreas were shocked. That's when they met Captain Chris, who was leading the military operation. Chris informed them that after causing destruction in Les Gas, the monster moved 2 miles ahead and then suddenly disappeared. Despite all efforts, the military could not find it, as if the gigantic creature had vanished into thin air. After this, they questioned an elderly couple who had been hiding in their secret room out of fear. They didn't know much, but the old woman mentioned that she had heard a roar like that of King Kong about to attack. However, this information was not enough to reach any conclusion. conclusion. So, Nora decided to investigate the area herself. During her search, she noticed a strange smell, which led her to a massive footprint. She immediately started examining the footprint, but despite her efforts, she could not find any biological substance to analyze the monster. With no other option left, she finally decided to seek help from her father, who was living far away in the mountains. To reach him as quickly as possible, Nora, Andreas, and Captain Chris used a helicopter. However, as soon as they arrived, Tobias pointed a gun at them. But the moment he saw his daughter, Nora, he calmed down and invited everyone inside. Even after all these years, he was still researching trolls. When they showed him the video, he was shocked and said just one thing: they have returned. Nora was still confused and asked her father for a scientific explanation so they could find a way to stop the creature. But Tobias was firm in his beliefs and explained that trolls disappeared from Norway because people converted to Christianity. He also revealed that years ago, he had tried to expose the secret, but he was silenced and sent to a mental asylum. After that, he picked up his bag and told them to follow him to a specific location. They boarded the helicopter and soon arrived at the place Tobias had mentioned. Upon reaching, Tobias began investigating the area. After some time, he realized that the place had completely changed. Meanwhile, Nora once again smelled the strange scent she had named Hypernature. Before she could understand anything, she suddenly spotted a massive creature hiding within the surroundings. It was the same troll. Fortunately, they managed to escape in the helicopter just in time. Once they reached a safe location, they shared the footage of the troll with the government. Seeing such a huge creature, everyone was stunned. Now that people believed in the reality of trolls, the Prime Minister ordered an army operation against them, placing Captain Chris in charge. As soon as the orders were given, the military launched a dangerous operation against the troll. However, even their most powerful missiles had no effect on the monster. It remained unharmed. When the troll ate one of the soldiers, Tobias stepped forward to calm it down. At first, the troll seemed to listen, but suddenly, another military unit attacked it. Angered, the troll turned to attack them, and in the process, its tail struck Tobias, severely injuring him. Seeing this, Nora rushed to her father, but before he could say anything, he took his last breath. That night, a grieving Nora read her father's diary, desperately looking for a way to stop the trolls. After hours of reading, she discovered that trolls often destroyed churches because they couldn't stand the sound of church bells. When Nora proposed this plan to the government officials, they initially thought she was crazy, but she argued that since missiles weren't working, they needed to try something different. Eventually, the Prime Minister approved the plan. Soon, army helicopters carrying massive church bells flew toward the troll. At first, the plan seemed to work, but the troll soon regained control and destroyed all 4 helicopters. Now, it was so enraged that it began causing even more destruction. However, amid the chaos, the troll also saved a child's life, proving that it might still have a heart. News channels worldwide broadcasted this event, creating widespread panic among civilians. At the same time, the Prime Minister declared a state of emergency and ordered the evacuation of Oslo and surrounding areas, as the troll was rapidly advancing toward the city. Meanwhile, due to her failed plan, Nora was removed from her position as a scientific advisor. On the other hand, Andreas discovered the government's next plan to bomb Oslo and nearby cities in an attempt to destroy the troll. But Andreas didn't have the power to stop it either, so he resigned from this useless job. Thousands of people were leaving their homes and cities, including Nora and Andreas. Meanwhile, Nora felt guilty that she couldn't save the country from this crisis. That's why she started reading her father's diary again. This time, she noticed the name Sind being repeated multiple times. When she discussed this with Andreas, he told her that Sinding was actually a prince who lived in a palace in Oslo and was currently the richest man in the country. Now, Nora felt that they might find some clues in the palace, so she immediately asked Andreas to drive there. As soon as they reached the palace, they met Reich Sindik, who was already waiting for them. He then took them inside the palace and finally revealed the secret of Norway's trolls. Tobias was absolutely right. Trolls roamed the land of Norway in ancient times. Sinding then took them to an underground cave where he confessed that he was the one who ruined Tobias's life to keep the truth hidden. When Tobias got too close to uncovering it, Sinding had him sent to a mental hospital. The real secret was the skeletal remains of trolls buried beneath the palace, remains that Sinding had hidden from the world for years. In fact, this palace was built over the Troll King's cave, where he and his entire family were wiped out by Christians. The troll that was now wreaking havoc across the country was none other than the Troll King himself. He was just trying to return home. Sin then explained that, for trolls, their family was the most important thing. During Norway's Christianization, the Troll King was forcibly driven into the mountains. Now, due to the explosions, he had returned, simply trying to reunite with his family. But Nora and Andreas were even more shocked when they discovered that the remains of the Troll King's family were lying right in front of them. As soon as Nora shined UV light on the bones, they began to melt. This meant that trolls couldn't withstand UV light. Following this revelation, Nora asked Sind for his largest vehicle. Sind then handed her the Queen's favorite truck. After that, Nora called Captain Chris to explain their plan. They would trap the Troll King and attack him with UV light. For this, they needed several large UV lights. Meanwhile, Andreas immediately called his friend Sigrid, asking her to delay the Oslo bombing plan at any cost. Fortunately, Sigrid was a skilled hacker, and she discreetly prevented the missiles from launching. Meanwhile, Nora and Andreas drove around with the skull of the Troll King's child, trying to attract his attention. Their goal was to lure him toward the UV light trap. As soon as the troll broke the skull, he realized that his family was truly gone, which made him even more furious. Back at the military base, Sigrid was caught red-handed while hacking. However, the general understood the situation and cancelled the bombing plan because there were still many civilians in the area who would have been killed. Nora and Andreas successfully led the troll to the light trap. As soon as he reached the spot, Captain Chris and his team switched on all their UV lights. Their plan worked. The troll started burning. But watching him suffer like this, Nora suddenly changed her mind. She began turning off the UV lights one by one because she wanted to save his life. But it was too late. Just then, the sun rose. As soon as the sunlight hit the Troll King, he became weak, fell to the ground, and turned into stone. Watching him die, Nora felt deep sorrow. While everyone else was celebrating, Nora and Andreas were still worried. What if more trolls were still out there? At that moment, the Prime Minister arrived. She was so impressed by Nora's efforts that she was at a loss for words, but her smile clearly expressed her happiness. A few days later, what they feared the most happened. Suddenly, several stones started moving again. This meant that another troll was now fully prepared to wreak havoc on the people of Norway. And that's how this story unfolded. What do you think about it? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more movie breakdowns.